different spiritual practices and events are taking place that align energetically, including Lent, Vasa, Chaturmas, and Ramadan. These events are a time to reflect and consider the energetic alignment and spiritual alignment of those who participate and want to reach for something higher within themselves to contribute more to the community of spiritual beings.
It's 5:55 on March the 10th, 2024, and this is the first day of my fast. Tomorrow marks the first day of Ramadan, and although I don't practice Ramadan, nor do I practice the faith associated with Ramadan, I decided to have my fast coincide with this particular time frame so that I can absorb and participate with the energy of Ramadan so that I have more of an impetus to continue this fast for the duration of Ramadan and beyond. And so I've chosen to take this fast at this time because we have a shift in energy in the earth. We have a shift of energy in the atmosphere, in the etheric sphere. And so we have several events that have occurred last October, right, which was the conclusion of my previous fast of this duration. And we have a similar event that is coming up in April that is one of the reasons why I chose to do the fast at this time. And so I had planned to do this fast during this time, and I have done all the steps that I needed to build up my nutrition, build up my reservoirs of electrolytes and other minerals and vitamins. And I've taken the last couple of days prior to today to wind down my nutritional intake, concluding with a nice Japanese meal last night consisting of seaweed salad, vegetable rolls, and a vegetable sonomono. And so with that, I took on the life of these vegetables and these greens, and nothing was cooked. It was all true life ingredients that I brought in, and now I'm on this journey of transformation, the next stage of it, the next leg of it. And so I want to take a time to talk a little bit more about what that looks like from my point of view.
It begins with, who are your people? Who are you? Where are you from and what do you want? Who are you? Who are your people and the people that inform you, that you are aligned with? Who are you? So Many in the Western world, the United States and the European-based experience, has learned a way of living that is very individualistic, very individualist, where you are a singular entity among entities. You are an army of one. You are someone that can survive all the harsh environments. You can survive and persevere and prevail through all difficulties. Just you. And when the chips fall, when push comes to shove, it is you and you alone that can emerge victorious. Yet, the world did not evolve that way. The world evolved through community. And when we look at civilizations and we look at people, especially those in what we would call the underdeveloped world, but that I call the true developed world that simply decided to take a break. And that is a world where, when we're talking about the regions of Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, parts of what is now called the Middle East, but which is actually Northern Africa, and other regions of the world where we have what some would call more tribal, some would call more collective, more communal. You have societies where people live together, where you may have several generations of people in one household. Several generations of people, where you have grandma, grandpa, great-grandma, great-grandpa, and in some rare cases, great-great-grandma, great-great-grandpa. You have maybe uncles around. You have a wide spectrum of people that are together. And through that community, that closely knit family and families, you have culture. You have culture. You have wisdom that is passed down from generation to generation to generation. You have insight on how to live in the world. You have young ones that are now into their mid to late 20s, mid to late 30s, and they still live at home with mama and daddy. They still live at home with them. And those individuals have the opportunity to be developed as individuals in a way where they're more of a participant and more of a contributor to the family, to the community. They're people that can learn from their siblings, learn from their parents, learn from their living ancestors. And through that learning through their living ancestors, understand life and perspective and perception through those living ancestors, to understand the ancestors that are now in another place and another realm. And so I bring up the concept of community because community is a very real thing when we're talking about living in this world. Community is a very real thing when we're talking about day-to-day life and we're talking about existence in this reality. Community is a very real thing. But when we're talking about spirituality, when we're talking about what exists beyond this existence that we call real life, We sometimes refer to our ancestors, and white people and black people and Asian people and Latin American people, they all have ancestors. They all refer to ancestors. Among the white people, ancestors may run the gamut of the Celtics, the Celts, the ancient Britannians, the ancient Europeans. Among the Asian people, you have the Qing dynasty. You have all the ancestors that helped build China into what it is now, build Japan into what it is now, build the Koreas into what it is now. In Africa, despite all that has transpired with colonialism, you still have the ancestors that set a foundation for the pyramids, for the ancient temples, the ancient practices. You have the Akkadian Empire, you have the Etruscan empires, right? And then you have Latin America, right? And you have the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Olmecs. Wherever you are now, you have ancestors. And so these ancestors are part of a community. The ancestors are part of a community. Dr. Moonbi Saraki, in her channel, the Moonbi Spiritual Show, she talks about this community by way of another word called the spiritual team. I like that phrase, the spiritual team, which is that broad community you acknowledge, that broad community that you recognize, your spiritual team. And so when we think about the oncoming energetic shift of April 2024, how it proceeds from an earlier energetic shift, we have an opportunity to move through community, from individual to community. And so when we look at fasting for me is one of those ways to tap into this inner self so that we can eventually be the proper participant in community that we can be. And so in this realm where the perspective can be so individualistic, then fasting can seem like this solitary endeavor. This endeavor where you're out at times in a wasteland of doubts, a wasteland of second thoughts and second guessing yourself. Anyone that has looked at my previous disclosures about my own spiritual journey, which has been shared for the purposes of merely having a record and shared for the purposes of helping others who have questions about this process. Because truthfully and truly, the best spiritual journey is the one that is done in secret. Fasting is best done in secret. For everyone like me who is disclosing, there are thousands of others that are not disclosing, who are going through the process in a much more intimate way. And so I decided to step out of that veil and help others understand this process as I go through it myself. And this discussion is meant to be very straightforward, or should I say very candid, very honest, very honest. And so It's like when you are fasting, you are, in the physical sense, very alone. You are very alone. And it is not something to be taken lightly, right? Not something to be taken lightly. You are very alone. And you may have a spirit animal with you. In the shamanic sense, you may have tools that you can fall back to, that you can anchor yourself with, that you can use to move forward through this process. Ultimately, you are a spirit. Ultimately, you have essence, you have potency. The physical, however, has its own requirements, its own rules, its own laws. And it is a special gift when your physical can be in alignment with your spiritual. Despite that, the temptations are always there. Like in a wrestling match, to tap out early, to cease and desist. And so you go through this process out on this wasteland of fasting, not for its own sake. Fasting is a tool. It is the most powerful tool you have available to you in the physical realm. Fasting is the most powerful tool. And it's actually wonderful when you don't have to use it. Hello! So, yes, I'm out here in nature, and people from decades ago recognize me and acknowledge me, and that's a blessing as well. And so, yes, you want to use fasting when it is appropriate. And so I have coordinated my fasts with different events. Do I like fasting? No, I do not like fasting. I am someone that is using it for particular ends. The health benefits are an unexpected benefit of fasting. But you pay a price when you fast. And the cost is convenience, the convenience of eating, the convenience of certain levels of energy, and you also escape the scrutiny of others who question the reasons why you step away from the typical process of eating food and dining regardless of your diet, right? You could be a vegetarian, you could be a meat eater, you can be whatever. But one thing that is expected is that you eat 2 or 3 times a day, unless you're in that athletic mode where you eat once a day. But not eating at all for a prolonged duration, that's not something that is expected or something that people will find to be normal or to be acceptable. So you just have to persevere through it, but do it with the community of spirits in mind, the community of those that truly support you in the spirit, those ancestors you are aligned with, the primordial creator, or who others call the Most High. Fasting in the spiritual sense does take on a different meaning and a different imperative when we talk about the renewal of your being. Because just like being out in the wasteland where the severity of heat and other elements can peel away all the excess, so does fasting peel away the excess of moods, the excess of intellect, the excess of emotion, and the excess of the body. So that when you get your full benefit of fasting, because it's different for everyone, but when you get your full benefit, you know you've gotten it and you've reached there, you've reached that point, then you have shed excess and now you have been sharpened. You have been adjusted by your own decision, your own will to be in totality what you can be, which is a high value contributor to the community and to the progress of humanity and existence. Ordinarily, you're going to have doubts when you're fasting. Voices will literally talk to your head. You will hear them, but not actual voices, but more like the thoughts. But they become much clearer the more you go through this process. These voices of doubt, of reconsideration, the voices that try to make you feel guilty for what you're attempting to do. The voices that say that you're not good enough. Voices that may say all the times you try to pursue spiritual process, you have come up empty. Voices that may say that, yes, you're making a good run at this, but are you really going to achieve what you are pursuing, which is spiritual process of transformation? All kinds of doubts that seem so far left field, but they're still legitimate doubts that become much more removed from the more ordinary doubts of you're not good enough or you can't make it, to doubts that start to call into question your ego. Are you doing this for the right reasons? Are you someone that is maybe taking this too far? What about your body? What about those that care about you? What about those that are concerned about your health and your safety? What about protein? What about the dietary necessity to nourish yourself? The doubts are legion. The doubts can be overwhelming at times. And they strike at predictable times, but they also strike at unpredictable times. The most predictable time when the doubts will arise is in the earlier parts of the day. That's the most predictable time you will encounter these doubts. That transition between sleep and awake, the transition between sleep and awake where you have exited the delta brainwave state and you are migrating through the theta state and then moving into the alpha state on the way to the beta state. During those transitions, going from the spiritual and the physically unconscious where you are in the spiritually conscious, right? But then in the physical, you're physically unconscious, moving into the physically conscious, or what you might want to call aware, right? Because physical consciousness is not the same as spiritual consciousness. But that transition, you have a element of weakness. It's a type of weakness. And the weakness is real. The weakness is such that you are wondering about your energy for the day. You're wondering about your ability to get up. You're wondering about brain fog. You are wondering about the difficulties of moving your legs, moving your head, moving your body. Those types of concerns and considerations are ever present. And at the same time, those doubts that I mentioned earlier in the Wasteland permeate the early hours. They permeate the early hours. And so some call these demons. Some call these demons. You can call it whatever you want, but whatever they are and whatever it is there to take yet another individual and pull them back from that process of transformation. Pull you back from that process of transformation. Because remember, it's not about you as an individual. What it's about is you as part of a community able to contribute to and enhance the community. So whatever it is that does not want to see the community succeed, it's there with you in those initial waking moments. And it tries to anchor to such an extent where it is lingering beyond moments into minutes and potentially into an hour, into hours, right? Some who fast will be in the bed for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And that's if they took paid time off, PTO. Yes, you took time off so that you could fast without the potential of an accident, the potential of calamity, the potential of screwing up when you're out and active in the world. So you took time off so that you can lay in bed for 3 days, 7 days, or however long your fast is, so that you have that opportunity to just sit there or lay there, drink some water or something, and you're going to call that meditation and fasting. And the whole time you're laying there, thinking that just the mere act of laying there or sitting in lotus position is elevating you spiritually, as you get your water and you sit there and you meditate quietly, you think that is spiritual process and spiritual progression. And meanwhile, while you're laying there most of the day, being unproductive, you got voices that are amplifying what you are starting to feel and sense deep within. That yes, give yourself a hand clap. You've abstained from food. You have abstained from food. You have abstained from food. But did you make progress? And that's where these voices come in. Because these voices know the truth. They know what's deep down. Were you merely trying to abstain from food? Or were you truly trying to achieve spiritual process, transformation, ascension, deeper understanding? Or did you have a misunderstanding about this, so that you then dwindled into a deepening cycle of headaches and nauseousness and lethargy, to where, yes, your PTO is over, you were able to get your energy back up, you're now eating again, but you look back, you're like, well, I missed an opportunity there. And those voices, they're there, getting you to the point where you don't really make much progress at all. Did I say this conversation was going to be honest? Yes, this conversation is going to be brutally honest. Because by knowing what's ahead, you can better plan for and mitigate the hurdles and pitfalls that you will inevitably encounter. And that's including, what do you do when you're lying in bed on a fast? The number one thing is brain fog. You're sitting there looking at the ceiling, and each day that passes, you're like, oh my goodness, I did it again. Oh my goodness. Another day without food, another day without progress, another day where I just don't feel like doing this anymore or moving anymore. Actually, that internal talk sounds very familiar, doesn't it? For anyone that has had to deal with depression, there is a similarity between what you have to move yourself through in a fast and depression. And so, what do you do when you're sitting there unmotivated, demotivated? You're sitting there wondering, is this even worth it? It's not so much woe is me, it's so much that this is a real drain on your body. This is a real pull down to the earth itself, to where it's like you got more than gravity weighing upon you. And you're laying there and the sun could be out, and all you want to do is put on a sleep mask and maybe put those headphones on again and just drift off again. You could do that. You could even convince yourself that those meditation soundtracks that you're listening to is getting you somewhere. You could do that. You could certainly do that. But again, remember that your negative self-talk or your negative mood or that zone that you are in right now is only a small fraction of what's really going on. Because when you're doing this on a spiritual level, there's also the contest in the spirit. And I don't do good and evil, right? There's a different perspective beyond good and evil. What it is a operation of opposites. There's an operation of opposing modalities where your energy is aligned with one modality or the other, so that those that succumb to fear, those that succumb to what you might call hopelessness, powerlessness, they are feeding into that side of the equation in the spiritual realm that utilizes that level of energy to their greater agenda. Then there are those that believe in love, hope, truth, elevation, ascension, holiness, goodness, kindness. And if you're Christian, Galatians chapter 5, verse 22. Or if you're Buddhist, the Four Noble Truths. Or if you're Hindu, the more enlightened aspects of Patanjali doctrine and scriptures. Or if you're into African spirituality and you practice Yoruba or a variety of other paths where you are more in that love and light type of direction, Ubuntu, then you are bringing your energies into that side of the equation that would see the evolution of living beings and existence in a more vibrant and nourished and constructive way of doing things. But when you're lying in that bed, all of those things sound good. All of those things sound good. And some people may be motivated to fast so that they can work more in that way. And this is just a sidebar, but those that follow the path of what some would call darkness or evil or malevolence or whatever, there's fasting that works for that as well. Okay? So fasting is neutral, right? Many that follow the Christian path, they think of fasting, they think of Jesus and 40 days and 40 nights, right? And then you start to associate fasting with something that is noble and that brings about greater truth. But fasting is neutral. Like I said earlier, it's a tool, and anyone can use that tool. Even the wicked can use fasting to amplify the powers of darkness, the powers of the dark side of the force, as it were. But regardless of what your noble agenda is and your elevated purpose is, your first obstacle is, can you even get up and do anything with that burgeoning potency you're trying to cultivate? I will not describe the dark side benefits of fasting. Rather, I'm on the what you call the right-hand path, and so let's talk about the interactions with those that would try to discourage you from elevating and fasting, right? Elevating along the right side path, right? Loving kindness, goodness, grace, and love. You're lying there in bed. You got brain fog. Your body does not feel like it wants to move. And we're not talking about night terrors or paralysis like that, because that doesn't actually happen during fasting. Your body is at an elevated spiritual state when you fast. It's just a question of how much can the spirit move the body when in that fasted state? And to what extent do you listen to, and I'm not talking about your actual ears, but your spirit and your conscious mind is actually listening to the music of discouragement, because we have cymatic frequencies here where the universe is music, existence is music. In the beginning was the word, as they said. And when you think about that, the prerequisite for a word is sound. The prerequisite for sound is vibration. The prerequisite for vibration is frequency and energy. You see? So that's the formulas. Okay? And so someone will ask, what is reality? What is reality? What is reality? Reality is a music. Reality is a song. That is what reality actually is. Reality is a song. You can use the language of physics and talk about the excitation of photons and electrons grounded and balanced by neutrons. You can do that all day long. You can talk about quantum mechanics and quarks and tachyons and neutrinos all day long. But you're talking about something that has a perfect and unmistakable relationship to what we call music. It is one and the same. It is one and the same. Shout out to Dr. Jeffrey Thompson and Dr. B. Serious. It is one and the same. vibration and frequency, music. And so for those that look at Christianity, in the beginning was the Word, let there be light. To speak is to invoke frequency. So all of existence and reality manifests through sound, manifests through vibration and frequency. That's the actual manifestation. And the moment to moment existence is a succession of frequencies expressed in a variety of ways through multiple dimensions that you can perceive. Right? It all works in on itself. Your eyes are made up of frequencies that then amalgamate together, and you have this thing called eyes that can see frequencies of a certain type. So it's frequency seeing frequency. But really, that's not what it's doing. It's frequency interacting with frequency is what it is. So anyway, you have yourself in this bed, and your frequency of a certain level in terms of what we call your ability to move is at a dormant state. It's at a still homeostatic state. And then you have this, what you might call a contrary frequency that's there. You might call it ominous or malevolent. And maybe not. Because again, at the level of transcendence, this is simply an aspect that is there participating in your refinement and tuning, in your confirmation of what your frequency has declared, which is you're fasting to transform spiritually and energetically. So how do you work through that? That's what I'm disclosing here. So we've established what happens and what's there, because if you fast, you will experience these things. But let's take the step by step of working through this, shall we? So first, acknowledge in your mind and in your consciousness that the doubts are there. Don't lie to yourself. See, the best way to love somebody is to be able to love yourself. Those that love themselves are able and capable of loving others. And those that don't lie to themselves are able and capable of telling the truth to others, you see. The truth is not something that's limited to what happens out here in this physical reality where you don't get in trouble, because you tell the truth, right? And all of that. No, the truth is actually about efficiency. The truth is more efficient. The truth is more harmonious, and the truth allows you to bring in more of those things that you want and need in order to be a total vibrant person. Whereas lies and self-deception and all of that is inefficient. It's barriers you're putting up, and it is these roadblocks that you're setting down that you're going to eventually trip over. And when there's actually a moment for you to reveal that you are qualified for whatever situation, if you have decorated your persona with lies, then now you have blocked yourself from being able to disclose the truth in order to be eligible for whatever the situation is. So it's more efficient, and it is more strategically smart to remain in the truth. So tell yourself the truth about how you're feeling. Yes, this sucks. Yes, I doubt where I'm at in this journey. Yes, I doubt this, I doubt that. Yeah, tell it. Because yes, others will tell you to just think positive and force yourself. No, that doesn't work. It doesn't work long term. It's not sustainable. But when you can be honest and you can gracefully transition into willpower, then that's when you get actual power within yourself. We see step one as being honest with yourself at all times and being gentle with yourself. Do not harm yourself trying to get up so rapidly. You got to have a plan, and that is the movement of energy through your body. Some call this Kundalini. You can call it whatever you want, but those of you who have worked through this process for a while, you know what I'm talking about. This energy that can move through your body. You've seen it in your mind. You've seen it in your consciousness. It's a real thing. It may not be a Hollywood thing, because that's the thing about this is you got to eject and get rid of the Hollywood stuff, right? Because the Hollywood stuff, it can be very misleading. Or if you're going to use the Hollywood stuff, learn how to transmute it alchemically into what is actually real. And what's actually real is you have meridians in your body. You have chakra systems, or some call them the 7 churches, whatever you call them. You have them in your body, and they start down at the base of your body, and you just have to be able to use your mind and consciousness and spirit to move this energy up. So your ability to move this energy up is where it starts. And as you start to do this, I'm going to tell you a little secret here. Those negative entities, they don't care if you move this energy up. And they know the possibility exists for you to dispel them for the moment with the movement of this energy. Okay? They're not sitting there quaking in their boots and shaking. You got to remember, they feed off of fear. So the thing is that what they see as an opportunity at this moment is for you to misdirect this energy so that they can feed off of that, right? And so that concerns the topic of the root and sacral chakras, right? If you misuse that, then you can create some issues, right? I will leave that as a study topic for those who have listened to this. But the main objective here is to move that energy from the root and sacral chakras up your spine, up your being, up into your crown chakra. That's where you want to be at. And so it's a gradual process. Some can do it quickly. I'm not one of those. I'm a novice at this. I've only been doing this for a couple of months. There are those that have been doing this for several years, and they can invoke this at will, and but the main thing is to practice it. And if you practice it, then by the time you're fasting, you have another tool that you can use that can move the odds in your favor of being able to get out of bed and get out of bed in a very productive way. You want to get that ground force moving in the right direction, which is towards your head, towards your temples. And one good aspect where knowing you're moving in the right direction is where you feel that energy surge in the middle of your chest, right? Has anybody ever watched the movie called The Exorcist, right? Well, I don't watch stuff like that. I don't watch horror movies, but I watched them when I was younger. I was introduced to them. I was exposed to them. And one thing about me is when certain images like that with a demonically possessed girl, her head is spinning and all that, when there are horror scenes of that level, I feel an energy in the middle of my chest and in my head, as if my whole being is resisting that, is rejecting that. Some people, they are just fine with that. Some people are just fine with that. I've met people, they're just fine with that. I'm not one of those people. That's why I don't want that type of imagery in my mind, right? And I've gotten so attuned at that level where if I was watching TV and like it's like Halloween or something like that, and maybe it's just a regular TV commercial, Swiffer wet mop or something like that, but my sixth sense can kick in and I know the next commercial is some malevolent Halloween advertisement, and I have a 100% success rate in being able to detect that through my preternatural and precognitive ability. 100% success rate. I know when that's coming. And so over the years, I've learned to trust that, because at first I was like, there's no way, there's no way. And then there it is, yes way, you should have listened. And so I learned to listen over the years, and I know how to turn the channel right before those type of scenes are depicted on television. So anyway, but what that showed me, and this was way before I knew what chakras were, right? But right there in the middle of your chest, there's this energy field that you can feel, right? And you can develop it so that it envelops your body. And it's like that is the starting point of when you are moving towards the love and light end of the spectrum, and you're moving towards having protection and sovereignty. Sovereignty, yes. When it comes to these types of exterior influences. So you want to be able to develop that by way of an internal dialogue, by way of energy work, and by way of internal visualization. And once you start moving this energy, then the next step is to start moving it, continuing upward. At some point, you are able to have this energy in your throat chakra, as they call it, in your throat. Christians will invoke the name of Yeshua. Others will invoke the universe. Others will simply say, get the bleep out of here. Others will be able to use the power of their voice at the spiritual level to dispel all negativity. I used to be able to use Yeshua to end sleep paralysis and night terrors and all of that, but as I evolved more in the shamanic direction and other paths, right, then I don't invoke that name anymore. But what I am able to do is just calmly speak the melodies of life and truth into the air and dispel the influence of those entities that want to keep me more on that negative end of the spectrum. So I basically talk about my ancestors, the primordial creator, the creator of essence, experience, being, and consciousness itself. I talk about my higher self and how my ultimate self, has jurisdiction over my body, over my being. And as I softly and confidently am able to utter these things while laying down, so then my body responds. And there are times where I don't even have to utter it, I can think it, because my body is now aligned with my spirit through repetition, day in, day out, 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 every day, almost every day, acknowledging those ancestors that are aligned with my best life, those ancestors that are aligned with my ultimate elevation, those ancestors that see to my good outcomes, sees to my best transformation. The primordial prime creator, which is transcendent and is not a judge over any of these modalities, whether good or evil, but simply is there that by the virtue of acknowledging the Most High, the primordial prime creator, in the modality of love, light, holiness, and goodness, that aspect of the primordial creator that brings about true and genuine elevation and energetic power behind intention, then through that throat chakra and through those utterances of allowing all good things, as Dr. B. Sirius would say, to magnetize to you, allowing those things that are truly good for you to be yours, and for your true birthright to be realized, that you are a lord of this realm by virtue of being alive, that those that are not incarnate do not have primacy over this experience, but you, as incarnate in this experience, have primacy. By uttering such words or similar words, doesn't have to be the example I gave. There are many different ways of doing ritual or doing spell casting or doing other kinds of utterances that will change the frequency and trajectory of where your body is going to go. So this is an example of how you can start to move from brain fog and what you call see, it's difficult for me to use negative words because I spend so much time with the positive words, and I used it earlier in this discussion, but yes, lethargy, yes. So to help you get past lethargy, to help you get past being suppressed, you can do that through these practices. You then reach a point where, as the ancient Kemites would say, the book of life emanates from you. The book of life, the book of existence, the light of living emanates from you. And those entities that wanted to participate in the harvesting of your energy, because it's not just about you staying down and suppressed, but it's about the type of energy that coincides with that state of experience. But you have a different priority in what you are undertaking through the fast, and that is to have the light of creation, the light of living, the light of being, the light of holiness, the light of the eternal emanate from every cell of your being, the light of understanding and awareness transformed to its magnified state. And these entities, they don't depart, they simply observe and behold. Because while this other modality, the anti-modality, is food for them, they have nothing else to do. They might as well watch, because they don't sleep, they don't sit, they don't do anything but observe and look for opportunity. And so, yes, even in your ascension, you are watched. Even in your ascension, you are observed. To know the finest, minute detail of who you are and how you differ from others who are working through ascension. Because in the overall landscape of what you call spiritual warfare, it's knowing the finest details of what you might call your enemy that can be useful in what you might call a battle at one level of existence, right? And so even your ascension processes can be food for thought or knowledge for those spirits that are onlookers, that are observing and seeing what is going on. And so with this process, a point comes where there's been sufficient elevation, sufficient energizing within the realm of your will, your body is ready and you can actually stand up. All you have to do is sit up for about a minute or so. Just sit up. No need to rush. No need to put your feet on the floor yet. There's no need for that. There's no need to start driving, to start moving, to start getting in gear. There's no need for that. Take it easy. Take it easy. Now, I make this all sound like it's a long process, but actually, it could take as little as 10 minutes. This whole saga, it feels like an hour, but it's actually 10 minutes. Between the time you have become aware, we call that waking up while laying down. From that time to when you can actually sit up, that might be 10 minutes. For some, it's 5 minutes. For others, it might be an hour. But whatever that length of time it is, make sure that your physical brain is ready, that all the fluids that you can feel in your cranium and in your cerebellum, that all the fluids you can feel moving from the right side of your brain to the left side of your brain and your prefrontal cortex, that those fluids have reached the right level of comfort. Right? If you are in communication with your body, you can feel these fluids, this fluid movement in your brain. And that's how you know you're ready to actually be awake. Or not so much awake in a physical sense, but fully lucid in a physical sense. In this realm of awareness, this realm of reality. And so you sit up. And while you're sitting up, yes, there's still the echoes of those entities and beings that would say, well, okay, you got up, great. Because remember, they can be deceptive. Their encouragement may be laced with discouragement the next second later. Yes, you sat up, now lay back down. You sat up, now lay back down. Because you're now on your way. Well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. You would know the ultimate truth of that statement, of that feeling, of that sense. You would know the ultimate truth as to when you're ready to actually get up. But your goal is not to get out of the bed, but to sit up in the bed. Sit up and let the light shine from your solar plexus, from your heart chakra, from your throat chakra, and start to talk. Say something simple, but say something. Let words come from your mouth. You don't have to speak a long sentence. Just say, I'm awake, or say your name. In my case, I would say, I am Michael, or I may say my secret name. I may say my secret name, which is not really a secret, but you know, the name I call myself that's not commonly known, should we say. Anyway, so you can say something to your ancestors. Say, thank you, ancestors, for helping me through this process. You can say, I thank the Most High for helping me through this process. I thank the primordial prime creator for the experience of this time, for the motivation. And as you do that, that contrary voice may start to diminish, may start to fade away. Just maybe. If you are getting the sense that there are multiple entities working to, what you say, undermine you or discourage you or pull you back, and then you see that there's just one left, then yes, there is always one left, always one. And that one will be there staring over you, overseeing you. It is the gateway to all the other entities. It is the gateway to the other path that you could take. ask yourself, how is it that you are capable of evil despite wanting to do good? How is it despite knowing that you are capable of the most diabolical thoughts and degeneracy and debauchery, despite a spiritual process that is to move you on the right-hand path? Well, the reality is that that final voice is an aspect of you. We call that the shadow and the shadow work. And so that shadow is your partner. It is that side of you that you cannot destroy. You can grossly suppress it, as some do in various religious practices, that we, upon observation, find to not be very effective overall. But that shadow is one where you can have it in alignment with your ultimate agenda, which is transformation and evolution, where you are trying to move your energy, your frequency, your expression in a different way, in a different quality. Yes, you call it good. Yes, you call it love. The thing is, who's going to defend love? Who is going to defend goodness? You can't just be a lamb and expect to perpetuate peace. You cannot be a lamb and expect that your love will exist unchallenged. And so your dark side is there as an element of yourself, because at the level of transcendence, at that level that is above negative and positive, good and bad, at that level, it's unity. At that level of transcendence is unity. Harmony. At that level of transcendence. Now, below that level of transcendence, you see dualities that we call positive and negative. And because our bodies are rooted in this third dimensional realm where you have dualities on full display, then yes, you have the option through decision, through will, through free choice to select a modality. I've selected the positive love, kindness, truth modality, but others can, and it's like those that go in the other direction. You might ask the question, well, then do they have to reconcile with their light side, with their positive side? The answer is yes, they do. See, true self-destruction, total self-destruction, is where you have fully suppressed and oppressed one of those modalities. They have to operate in harmony. It's just that when you are moving in love and light and peace and joy and happiness and goodness, right, then you know how to use your dark side in this realm of existence, right, so that it supports that agenda, okay, so that there is an actual expression of that motive, subconscious, preconscious force. So that's that final step in getting up every day. That's that final step in getting up every day when we're talking about the spiritual practice of being able to fast for prolonged periods without food, and then having the mind and the spirit and the consciousness to be able to get to the point where you can sit up, because that's where your actual physical day begins, is when you can sit up and stay sitting up. At the point that you have reconciled your light and dark sides and you're sat up, then the race is on to get to that first drink of water. Then you have to go to the restroom at some point. And you may still feel some weakness. I have some techniques for working through that, but the best thing that I can share right now is knowing what you can do at a minimal level when you don't have techniques, because my techniques involve actual tools. So you may not have some of those tools that I use to amplify this stage of the process, but once you are able to get up on your feet, then it's important for you to get to water. And when I use water, I'm using the term in a more broad sense. That could be tea, that could be coconut water, that could be distilled water, that could be spring water, but water. So I'm using water in a broad sense here. So get to your hydration. Get to your hydration, right? And then you might have to use a little bit of support. You might have to lean forward against the table. You might have to lean forward against something. And yeah, you can lay back down, right? Because this is not about right or wrong. This is about, if you want to eventually and productively get up and participate in the world, participate in actual activity while you fast for prolonged periods of time, then this is the next stage. And that is, get up and lean on something if you have to. Get that drink of water and start moving around. Because that movement is what actually is going to charge the entirety of your body. See, up until this point, you've used willpower. You've used the energies of your spirit. But now it's time to balance that so that your spiritual essence is not used excessively. Because you got an entire day that you got to go through, and you want to be able to conserve your spiritual energy in harmony with the physical energy that you have accumulated unbeknownst to you when you went to sleep. Because your actual recharge time is your sleep. When you slept, you were in a different dimension. When you slept, you were in a different dimension. And when you're going through your fast and moving about day to day, there are aspects of that dimension in terms of who you really are, who you truly are, that echo out, that you will see projected through your being. If you look in the mirror, you look into your own eyes, you will see that spiritual avatar projected through your physical avatar. And it will be there, instructing you, guiding you. The longer you go into the fast, the more of it, of your true self, you see. Basic fasting, whether it's dry fasting or H2O, you got water, right? But when you can use other tools to enhance your ability to get through the fast, right? Then you have tools such as liquids of various kinds. Some you can brew, some you can concoct. Like an alchemist, you are transforming the spiritual potency of your body through various teas, liquid extracts, herbal extracts. Mullein leaf, for example, Pardiarco. It could be Panax ginseng. You use these different elements in their liquefied form to achieve a level of purity from these elements aligned with the purification of your body, so that you are able to elevate and stay elevated in a way without the distraction of taste, sensation, texture. Those things are nice, they're wonderful, and they're fabulous. But it's a blessing to abstain from those things for a while because it creates the opportunity for you to genuinely and actually explore and apply alchemy. 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 You have an opportunity through a longer fast to undertake alchemy. Again, not the Hollywood alchemy. This ain't about being Doctor Strange. Even though I've learned recently Doctor Strange was based off of a real life person who was this master of Rosicrucianism. You'd have to look up Asir, the Duke of Tears, and his discussion of this guy. I think his name was Blakely or something like that, who was like the template for Doctor Strange. And then Dr. Jeffrey Thompson talks about this guy called Gurdjieff. I'm still absorbing Dr. Jeffrey Thompson's discourse on Gurdjieff. But anyway, but in a very practical sense, though, this is not about trying to open up portals that people can see with their own eyes and doing all that kind of stuff you see in Hollywood films. Those are just visualizations of what actually goes on internally and on other dimensions. But you can induce that in terms of actual energetic change through the combination of elements. And when you can bring those elements to their exalted form, then you're able to leverage them to exalt and amplify the biology, which in turns creates a more capable platform for the energetic form that's bound up with it to be able to operate more effectively in this state of existence. Therefore, if you are able to take extracts that are just pure liquid, mullein leaf, party arco, Panax ginseng, cell food, whatever, in the form of tea or tinctures or coconut water, then you have something very effective. Spring water. And the Western scientific aspect of that whole process is that coconut water, spring water, is giving you the electrical charge that your body can use to operate, but also the positive side effect of that is you can dispel brain fog. Okay, so that's the Western scientific research that has proven to be true on that aspect. And then I would add to that you can supplement those electrolytes with Panax ginseng, lion's mane, and gotu kola, so that you have actual mental focus and mental lucidity, where you're able to actually think and use your brain in a very powerful way during the time you fast. So then all that's left is the movement of your muscles and the muscle contractions, which creates the procession between magnesium, calcium, and potassium, where you actually have energy throughout the physical body. The only thing I haven't actually resolved yet is what you do in the lower extremities of your body, where we're talking about knees, for example. But Qigong exercises and Tai Chi exercises would be great ways to resolve that. There may be chemicals that you can use for that while you're doing a prolonged fast, but as to everything else, the ability to think, to be able to move, to be able to consciously control your biology, then the elements that I've cited so far, coconut water, true spring water, electrolytes, and things like cell food and other herbal extracts can be used to provide the body with motive force. The only side effect in this alchemical process is that you may end up with an excess of energy that you don't know what to do with. Vis-a-vis, you may not be able to go to sleep. And so you need to manage your dosage properly so that you have just enough energy to get through a 12-hour day or longer. And then if you want to sleep for 8 hours or 10 hours, then make sure you have the dosage of these elements such that you're able to drift off at the right time around 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. and awake around 5 or 6 a.m. As you go through this process of alchemical transformation within yourself, then you start to harness the energies of existence. And these energies allow you to make choices, better choices, more natural choices, deeper choices about the direction of your life, about the direction of your life, about the direction of your life. You're able to sit in a way where you can gain that perspective, where your meditation is more potent, where your conception about who you are, your conception about who you want to be can actually proceed more effectively. So charge your water, charge it, and the best time to charge it is the day before. The best time to charge it is the day before. Charge your water at night so that when you wake, the water is ready. Charging is speaking the words of life, the words of power, the words of existence. Actually, speak whatever words you want into the water. It's going to do whatever it is you speak into it. The most truthful phrase in existence that I know is that whatever you think is, and what you think is not also is. So if you believe something is a certain way, eventually it will be. And if you believe something doesn't work a certain way, that also will be true. So you have to speak the words of existence, speak the words of manifestation into your water, into your water. Remember, I'm using water in a loosely defined way. So whatever form your liquid is, speak the words of existence in it, into it. As an advanced technique, I'm going to tell you that if you buy some tea bags at the grocery store and you put those tea bags in the cold water and you put a lid on it, those tea bags will brew even in cold water. So you don't always have to make tea hot. You don't have to use hot water to get the tea out of the tea bag. You can literally cold brew just about any tea that exists. So if you get some Party Arco tea, you get some licorice root tea, you get some South African rooibos tea, R-O-I-B-O-S, you get whatever tea it is, some detox tea, maybe it's dandelion root, milk thistle, and nettle leaf. Whatever it is you want to do, you could put it in some cold water and let it sit for a day, 2 days. I've done it up to 4 and 6 days. You will create a more potent and powerful drink. The longer you let it sit, cold brew. Cold brew. And it is the most affordable and inexpensive way to do an herbal extract from store-bought herbal tea. I discovered that on my own. Like everything else I discover on my own, I eventually find out that other people have been doing it for forever. So I'm just saying that I've done this. I'm pretty sure it is a thing. All I can tell you is it works. So whatever you do with your water, there are many things you can do with your water. The music that you have around it, the type of TV programming that is playing in the air, the words from that TV program goes into that water in little traces, unless you got a Bluetooth speaker right up to the water, for example. Whatever you do, you can put elements into the water that then confer to you energetically. This is not spiritual hocus pocus. This is actually scientifically verified experiments done by a Japanese professor, researcher, whatever. I believe his name is Masamoto. Anyway, he did the experiments and proved that you can change the orientation of water through sound, spoken sound, music. So, I can also tell you from my own subjective experience that when you charge the water, because that's what all this is called, charging the water tastes different. The water tastes different. Now, I just described the long way of doing it. There's a short way of doing it. It's not as powerful, but it still works. It's better than nothing. And that is, you just pour some water into the glass or to the flask or to the mug or to the water bottle, and you charge it like 5 seconds to 10 seconds before you drink it. It may not be as potent as doing it the day before, the night before, or even a week before. It may not be as potent as that, but I always say something is better than nothing. And so I never let the lack of time to do a ritual or do a process from blocking me. I don't let that block me from getting it done. So it's just like praying over your food. It's the same thing. You pray over your food before you eat it. You don't pray over your food the day before you eat it. When you have cooked a meal, you pray over your food, and all the spiritual traditions, the majority of them anyway, state that praying over your food transforms the food. So in that same vein, mantras and words of power over your water, over your liquids, should have the same effect. As you go through this process, you will transform. Will it be a permanent transformation? Who is to say? I know after my last fast that I did, that spanned several weeks, I did a 30-day fast, and I was completely changed as a result of it in terms of how I perceive time. That was the biggest thing. Time changed for me. Time sped up. It still speeds up. And I became out of phase with normal life in terms of what my priorities were. And so I underwent an alchemical transformation in terms of what I found to be important. It was a deep and lasting change. Whereas before I could find myself rushing to get something done, I find it more difficult to slide into a state of haste, of rushing. I always want to take my time and make sure I do things right now. Whereas before, it was just different. And at first, it caused me a lot of problems. It caused me quite a few problems, but I've been able to align things better these days. But whatever whatever it is for you, going through a prolonged fast, you will change. You can't always predict the change. Some of it you can. The changes you can predict are those changes you have planned to undertake to begin with, such as you're going to change your diet, you're going to change this, you're going to change that. Fasting actually gives you the power to be able to make good on that. Fasting gives you the power to make good on that. Fasting empowers you and supercharges you to really pursue the goal that you set out with prior to fasting or during fasting. So while you're fasting, you may say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. When I'm done fasting, better believe that 9 times out of 10, you're going to have, you would have programmed yourself, pre-programmed yourself all the way through to follow through on what it is you have set yourself up for in terms of your goals and your planning prior to and during the fast. You say you don't want to eat meat anymore? Better believe fasting will change your mentality. You say you don't want to do just unhealthy vegetarianism? Best believe a fast will move you in that direction. You don't want to take these shortcuts in your diet that make you feel like you're not doing your diet right? Fasting is definitely going to put you where you want to be. And so you go through alchemical change, transmutation of your own beliefs, transmutation of your own motives. You're able to take your motives, your motivation, and shift it the way you want it to be shifted. When we are looking at the transmutation of waters, of liquids, words is the minimum. Words is the minimum. However, there is something more powerful than words. There is something more powerful than words. And there is something more powerful than mathematics. There is something more powerful than even light itself. The most powerful thing you can do with liquids is music. Music and sound. So you can take a tuning fork, a 936 tuning fork, a 428 tuning fork, or a 432 tuning fork, a 432 tuning fork, or a 528 tuning fork. You can use any of those or all of them. And when you apply those to water or liquids in general, you elevate those liquids to the frequency of those tuning forks. And if you have the right music, like if I had to choose between speaking words of affirmation, manifestation, words of power and life into water, into liquids, versus having the right music, I would choose the music every time, because the right music touches on all dimensions and there is no ambiguity. There's a little bit of ambiguity with words because the English language is made up. The Swahili language is made up. The Latin language is made up. They're powerful languages, and the water consciousness will get the drift, as they say. It will get the cliff notes of what you are intending into that medium, into that water, into that liquid. It will get the drift and it will complete the transaction. But If you want the most complete and in-depth and most thorough elevation of the liquids, it is the music. It's the music of the spheres. It's the music. Since your body is made up of waters, and Yaqui Awakened has brought it to my attention that it's not the same water that we're talking about outside of the body. It's a different type of waters that's inside your body. It's more like a gel, right? But it's still a liquid substance. The thing is, because your body is made up of this liquid, the rules and laws and side effects and effects that apply to water when we're charging it applies to the body when it's receiving sounds. When it's receiving sounds. When you're talking, you're also talking to your body as well as whoever you're talking to in front of you. By that same standard, whatever music you're listening to through television programs or just regular straight up music, that is also having the same effect to your body that that sound would have on the liquid sitting in a glass, sitting in a cup. Therefore, you are literally feeding your mind and consciousness through music. So, depending on the type of music you listen to, you're either elevating the consciousness or bringing it down. So, through a prolonged fast, music intentionally used can be one of those things that creates a bridge between this reality and the other reality in a more perpetual way as you go about a waking state in this existence. The right music, the right sounds will help harmonize and elevate your chakras. Some say there are 14 chakras. Some say there are 7 chakras. I think they're all correct. I do. I really do. I think they're all correct. And then Sadhguru talks about 112, 114 chakras. The point is, you're talking about energy centers. And energy centers need not be limited to 1, 7, 14, or even 114. The thing is that you have to start somewhere. And that somewhere is the harmonic frequencies that resonate with you, where you see the progression of these energies within you. And so there's an actual soundtrack out there called The Sound of the Chakras, The Sound of the Chakras. And it's a tool that people can use to move in this direction. And then you have brainwave entrainment that is talked about by Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. You have binaural beats. All of these can be used as tools to help elevate the energies within you. And through prolonged fasting, you have the opportunity, not the guarantee, but you have the opportunity to access these energy centers in a way that the normal process of eating, digestion, and elimination, and the associated lethargy through digestion would tend to distract you from the process of accessing and working with these energy centers in a more profound way. Prolonged fasting is a chance to definitely reset the body. That will automatically happen. Your body will reset. The software of your body will go through a factory reset, which will also cause the hardware of your body to go through a factory reset. And during that reset process, you can set up a new programming sequence, new computer programs within you that enable you to take advantage of your hard drive, your RAM, your processor, your graphics card, whatever analogy you want to use. You're able to take those elements within you and you have a renewed chance to remove all of the clutter, or what the Buddhists and Hindus call the fetters of the mind, and access this energy and this inner being in a more profound and capable and productive way. I do think it's a good idea to be at work while you're fasting like this, or fasting in general. I do tell you to try physical activity. I do encourage physical activity. I definitely see that the movement of the body is as vital to fasting as sitting still and meditating. And when you are able to summon the energy and summon the ability day in and day out to get to the task, whether you sit at a desk, work in an office, work in a warehouse, work in a factory, work out in the elements, moving lumber, moving pipe, whatever it is, whatever your occupation or profession is that involves getting up, whether you work at home, you got to get up and move around, because that is going to help with the process of being able to stay alert and focused while you go through this process. Some do see fasting and meditation as just standing still with your spiritual team in utter serenity and tranquility and being at complete peace. There is a time for that. There is an actual time for that. That is absolutely vital to do that. Absolutely useful. I advocate doing that in nature. Doing that in nature, where you're able to access the energies of the surrounding flora and fauna and the landscape itself, because the landscape itself has its own energy, where the insects and the animals are participating in the fostering and cultivation of the surrounding energies, that you're able to use that to get deeper insight into your life's path and your deeper goals and motivations, and your insight to build your consciousness and expand and refine your aura. Meditation is useful and vital to that practice. When you're at work, though, there is less time for meditation and more of a time for action. And you have to be ready to do what you are supposed to do when you're in that space. And I find that different elements such as Panax ginseng, lion's mane extract, gotu kola, and ginkgo biloba, you can unify those things together in liquid form, where you have the mental alertness and acuity to do what you need to do, to be able to respond to people without being too slow with your speech, where you don't show the symptoms of a deleterious speech pathology, and you're able to access and harness your cognitive abilities not only at a functional level, but the prolonged fasting, which in many can trigger brain-derived neurotropic factor, right, will allow you to actually go beyond your normal cognitive level into a higher level of performance. So that's not in question when it comes to work, when you make the proper preparations and you do the right things so that you can work more effectively. The issue is, can you lift when you need to lift? Can you sit items down when you need to sit them down? Can you stand up when you need to stand up? And can you do all of this without fainting, without falling over, and without giving others cause for concern for your well-being and state of being, such that their feedback, whether verbal or non-verbal, will potentially cause you to second guess your course, to maybe doubt yourself and what you're doing, where you may feel foolish, you may feel like a fool, you may feel like, what in the bleep did I do? And you got egg on your face. Well, the good news is, the longer you fast, the less you care about that kind of thing. What I mean is, you don't care about your image. Your ego starts to melt away. Your ego, the part of your ego that thinks, or that overstates your importance in the universe, that aspect melts away, and in some successful processes disintegrates altogether. That doesn't remove your shadow self, which you need, but you can get to the point where it's like, yes, I tripped, I fell, I slipped up, I made a mistake, I screwed up. And you're not sitting there self-criticizing yourself ad nauseum, ad infinitum. You are aware of how you look and what mistakes you've made, and you might be aware you might look like a bumbling idiot. But you are so comfortable in your skin now, you're so comfortable with yourself now, that you're not passing harsh judgment on yourself. You're able to continue despite how the world may judge you and how the world may criticize you for your choice to fast, to reset, to cleanse, to purge and purify. So that's the good news. But you still have to think about the mitigations that you might want to put in place, depending on the level of activity required in your profession. Ultimately, this process is about your self-development, about your evolution, about your transformation, so that you can grow to a level where you can contribute more productively in the community, where you could be on the road to your highest self. Spiritually, your higher self, your highest self spiritually exists. Your highest self exists. But there is the issue of the delay between your highest self and the ability to execute through this physical avatar, through this physical being. And the more you have in this physical being, by way of distractions, by way of too much excess, too much material, and not just physical material, but intellectual and conceptual material. You can have so much that the body itself, in all of its aspects, mental, emotional, psychological, physiological, can be its own barrier to what your highest true spiritual self is trying to get through into this reality by way of manifestation and contribution. And so fasting allows you to sit still the digestion, sit still the solid food intake, to sit still everything associated with that, the time investment, the preparation, the monetary expense. You can sit still all those things. Sit still more and more of those inner voices, clamoring for attention about food and taste and pleasure and this and of that. Sit still, quiet within yourself, so that the true self emerges. The true self emerges. And it's such a true self that you are comfortable with who and what emerges. You have another chance to be who you truly are, psychologically, psychically, mentally, and consciously. It may not make you a better basketball player. It may not make you a better this or that at your work. It may not make you a better this or that in certain areas of life where you're talking about performance, how you perform. But it can make you a better total human being. A better human being is not somebody that's better than other people. Better in this case means well. It's the same as well. You are well again. Because we get sick from this food, from the toxins that's in these foods. We get sick from the different drinks that we may be exposed to, the different toxins in the air, the different toxins in the radiation from cellular devices, from Wi-Fi, you name it. We can get sick from all of these. And then you have the type of information that's out there in the form of entertainment, in the form of media, in the form of even books we might read. Just because you read a book doesn't mean you are improving yourself. You may be reading something that's utterly degenerate and, just moves you in a direction mentally that is not good for you in terms of psychological concepts, right? Better means that you get to reset back to that innocence. Doesn't make you innocent. What we've done is what we've done. What we've done is what we've done. But we need not have a life sentence for our mistakes or an eternal sentence for our mistakes. We can choose to change and go on a better path. A path of wellness, a path of health, a path of being healed, constantly healed, constantly in a healed state, constantly in a detoxified state, that even as the toxins increase, we now have a reset baseline where we can re-engage with all of that on better terms. And so that means that as you go further into fasting and you're able to move around, you're able to operate, you're able to function, that even though you haven't had a meal in a good while, it no longer matters after a certain point in time. It no longer matters, because where you stand and where you move, you are well and you are okay. Those that fast and take it on with integrity and take it on in truth and seek the wisdom of the ancestors, seek the wisdom of the universe, seek the wisdom of the Most High, the supreme, prime, primordial creator who created essence, experience, being, and consciousness, those things that cannot have prerequisites or precedents in cause and effect, then those individuals can see energetic transformation, not at the Hollywood level, but at the actual practical real life level, where you're able to move the way that you want. You're able to move with greater certainty. You're able to move with greater confidence. You're able to move with greater stability within yourself. That even if you lose everything materially, And that's not a necessity for spirituality. You can be rich and spiritual. You can be wealthy and spiritual. But even if you lost all those things and you had to sit in the woods, sit in your car, sit wherever, sit however, that you are still fine where you are at this moment in time. And that when you rise, as you rise, should you become a millionaire, a billionaire, a trillionaire, that what you do through a prolonged fast and what you do through spiritual transformation, it permeates what you do. Because as Bedros Keuilian likes to say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that means that if you are on the road of quality, that you can invade quality into everything that you do. It's like Steve Jobs and Apple, and how the humanities and technology is aligned for those that want to go along that course of manifesting more capable tools and experiences in this world through technology. Right? Technology is not just what is in a computer. Anything that's man-made is technology. And so when you're creating technology, you can infuse it with the right level of quality holistically and throughout its definition, so that it's more of a blessing to those that use it than a detriment in terms of workarounds and trying to make up for this flaw or this, limitation or that limitation. You can raise up the ecosystem of what you offer in terms of the things you build, the things you create, the things you contribute to the community at large. As you conclude your fast, however many days it is, whether it is 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 21 days, 30 days, 40 days, 45 days, 120 days, however long it is, when it's a prolonged dry or liquid fast or a combination of both, you will reach a point where you are wandering. You are wandering out in the wilderness. But it's not wild out there where you're wandering. It's simply a remote place that is apart from where others have chosen to be. Where, and this sounds strange, I know it sounds strange, it may sound unhealthy to some, but it's perfectly okay. But you will reach a point where you will feel like you don't need to eat food again. You will start to question the necessity for food. You will question it. You will wonder. You will wander into a place where you begin to wonder if. See, you got W-A-N-D-E-R and you got W-O-N-D-E-R. Similar words. They mean the same thing, actually. But you wonder if it would be wonderful if you could do without food. Because think of all the time you could save. Think of all the money you could save. It would be absolutely amazing. You might even wonder if you could be a breatharian, where you could live off of just air. There are people alive who claim they can do that. I don't know the veracity, the truth, or practical, realistic aspects of those claims. So I'm not here to actually emphasize that. I'm not here to emphasize that. But if you've made it this far, know that there are those that say that that is a life you could live. I believe there's a catch to that, where your air does have to be clean. So that means that doing that in the United States may be something to consider only if you're in the forests or near parts of the United States that have a lot of trees near your residence and the places you frequent. But the thing is that there are alternatives out there. A person can live for more than a month without food. A person can go an entire year without food under the right process. The Guinness Book of World Records notes such a thing. But the thing is, you will begin to wonder about these things. And that's perfectly normal to think about that. It's not unhealthy. It's just that you have to consider how you're set up to do the things that you want to do beyond that fasting period, where your main objective is to reset, where it is to recalibrate towards that ultimate goal. Transmute the elements within to create greater harmony within yourself that then echoes out beyond you, so that you have greater harmony with the world around you. Calibrate all the parts within you to be the best version of yourself on all dimensions, all levels of thought, cognition, the ability to see not only what's within your mind, within your consciousness, but communicate with your body overall, communicate with your cells, all 12 or 70 trillion of them, because not everyone has the same number of cells. The biology textbook does not describe every single human being on the planet. Anatomical science does not describe every single human being on the planet. Different groups of people have different compositions of vital elements, such as potassium, calcium, zinc, magnesium, even ammonia. Different groups of people have different constituent elements of prokaryotes and eukaryotes. But it doesn't matter. We're all human beings under the Most High, the Prime Primordial Creator. But we have to use who we are and how we are to best accomplish the things that we need to accomplish, and to be in alignment with the things that best nurture us. So for some people, certain diets work for them that don't work for others. For some people, there is a susceptibility to electromagnetic waves that we call radiation, Wi-Fi, 5G, 6G, etc., that others are less susceptible to. There are some that more naturally align with certain rhythmical practices and certain physical practices that others can do it, but not to the same level or detail. And there are some that are so into books and structured information and what you call object knowledge rather than intuitive knowledge, that those that are more aligned with intuitive knowledge would be underserved by being forced to learn things in that way. So you see, alignment is all about what you need to align within yourself to be the best version of yourself in accordance with how you are made up. This is why I no longer believe in universal health advice. all those social media posts and channels and content that says these are the best foods for you to eat, these are the best herbs for you to take, these are the 10 best this and 10 best that, and these are the things you should avoid, these are the things that cause cancer, these are the things that cause this or that. I don't believe in any of that because that doesn't apply to everyone. But that content is presented in a way as if it does. It's presented in a way as if it does. Now, while I say I don't believe in that, I do think it's still useful to watch it, read it, learn from it, and experiment with yourself to see what works for you. And not deride someone because their health advice didn't work for you. It just means that it doesn't work for you. It may work for somebody else. And the more that we know about the tendencies and the inclinations and the relevancies of different people and or groups of people, communities of people, then the more we can have tailored health information, wellness information that is more practical, more applicable, and that can be more useful. But generic, homogeneous, biology textbook, anatomy textbook, health information, chemistry book, health information is no longer the starting point as we head into the 22nd century according to the Julian Gregorian calendars. And so it is a time to find the right calibration, to find the right set of treatments and orientations that will help people get to their best level. And on that note, it's like when we're talking about religious practices, spiritual practices, health practices, media consumption, and just about everything you can think of, it's about finding those things that's going to really resonate with you and help you move in the direction you're trying to move into, rather than replicate, regurgitate what someone else is doing. And yet, with me saying all of that, there are certain things that are universal. There are certain things that are universal. Fasting is one of them. It's just that the length of time of fasting differs for different people at different times in their life. So when you're younger, maybe you need to fast for XYZ a time, or in, ABC such a way. And then as you get older, chronologically and physiologically, you might need to fast a different way, for example. But then you have others where it's like, okay, we know you need to breathe air, and the quality of the air is a universal health advice that is definitely beneficial to everyone. Quality water is definitely beneficial to everyone. So there are some common sense, everyday things that we know universally apply. But then there are very detailed things, like such and such food gives you the most vitamin C. Well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But as we wrap up this discussion and we look at the fasting opportunity of this time and the energetic shifts of this time, the elevation of the Schumann resonance, the elevation of energies by way of coronal mass ejections and EMP. Well, not EMP, you don't want that, but you have coronal mass ejection, right? You have solar flares, you have changes in the way the sun is being perceived, right? So, for example, people say the sun is more white than yellow these days, right? What does that do to us energetically? They say that the Schumann resonance has changed, right? And so there's actual proof of that. What does that do to you when we're talking about grounding? How does that change your relationship with the earth when you're grounding? when you're going out there bare feet on dirt? How does that change vegetables and fruits as we go through this energetic change? And so energetic changes are occurring. And when you fast, you reset so that you are able to align with this energetic change. And then as you align with this energetic change, then you're able to move towards your best self, to create less of a gap, to narrow the gap between your highest spiritual self and your incarnate three-dimensional avatar. And when you do that, then when you participate in the community of living beings, when you participate in the community of living beings, you're able to do so more constructively. You're able to do so in a more productive way, and you're able to do it in a way where you are thoroughly satisfied and okay with your contributions and your relationship within the community and across communities. And to that, I hope everyone found this message well, those that needed this and can benefit from this in this time of energetic changes, as well as those future times of energetic changes, where the tool of prolonged fasting can be used to manifest the type of alignment that you seek. I hope the information here and in the previous videos that I've posted on this topic of prolonged fasting can help those that look at it not just from a health standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint. And on that note, I wish you well. I wish you a good day, a good week, a good month, a good year, and more than that, a good lifetime and a good eternity. I'll see you later.